going on, everybody? I hope you all are well and safe. Over the past few videos, we talked a lot about loving God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. And today, we want to unpack that a little bit, what it looks like to love our neighbor as ourselves, which can be a challenge I'm sure that we all face at times. Often there are conditions to our love, and we only want to do it when it's a convenience for us. But is that how God commands us to love our neighbor, with stipulations and only when the timing is right? I mean, come on, this is BRL, so we already know the answer to that. That said, let's get to it. In Luke chapter 10, Jesus is having a conversation with the lawyer who inquires about what he must do to inherit eternal life. And Jesus replies with the follow-up question. He says, well, what is written in the law, and what is your reading, or what is your understanding of it? And the lawyer says, to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus is like, right on, brother, do this and you'll live. But in order to justify himself, the lawyer asks the follow-up question, and he says, and who is my neighbor? And real quick, before I go any further, there is no history or background given about this lawyer in this passage, but I figure that if he's asking this question, and who is my neighbor, only to justify himself, then it's probably true that he doesn't show love to everyone, only those who he thinks deserves his loves. And he was hoping that Jesus would respond with, well, you choose who you want your neighbor to be. Ultimately, Jesus responded with the following. A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day when he departed, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you. So which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, he who showed mercy on him. Then Jesus said to him, go and do likewise. So there are a few things to point out here. According to Jewish law, if a priest came in contact with a dead body, then they were considered to be unclean. And Levites, though they weren't considered to be priests, they worked closely with the priest. And as Jesus mentioned, the man who was robbed and beaten was nearly dead. So it's likely that the priest and the Levite did not want to risk offering help and end up touching a dead man, then having to go through the 7-day purification process. And maybe the priest and the Levite thought about it for a second, but then felt like their time receiving sacrifices and working in the temple was more valuable and more important than helping their neighbor who was dying. God says that he desires mercy, though, rather than sacrifice. On the other hand, the Samaritan man, who traditionally has no dealings with Jews as they went out of their way to avoid one another, saw the man in need and helped him like he was his own brother. He even went further and ended up paying for the man's hospital bill, so to speak. Now, I know that this would be a struggle for me, financially supporting someone who is essentially my enemy, and the lawyer, who knew the Jewish law, which included the priestly duties, could even see that the Samaritan man was the one who showed compassion and who was neighborly, and hopefully realized that he, like many of us, have to do a better job at showing love and compassion to those who we think are our enemy. The truth is, however, that they really are not our enemy. So my prayer for all of us who claim to be Christians and who profess Jesus as the only begotten Son of God and our salvation is that we truly love our neighbors with godly love. And that covers the full spectrum of our closest relative, to the complete stranger that we meet at the store, to the one person that we consider to be our most bitter enemy. And not only when we see it as a benefit to us, but even when it appears to be an outright inconvenience. And now is as good a time as any to start putting that into practice. Until next time, that's it.